Hello everyone, this is Yuti Doshi from One Mantra Mental Health. In today's episode, we are going to talk about a topic that's really close to my heart only because of today's guest, Mr. Noel Singh Dias. He is a very close friend of mine and today he's going to tell us a lot about LGBTQ community, some things that we all should know whether we belong to the community or not. So, just a bit about Noel. He is a learning and development psychologist and he is in the industry since 8 years. And that's about it. Noel, please, over to you. Please tell us something more about yourself.
Okay, so before I tell anything about myself, first of all, I would really want to thank you for having me here. And I know that you have been very passionate about this subject, and we share this as a common interest. So, you being able to get me here and give me the confidence to talk about it, I think it's really amazing because I really look forward to all the work that you put together. And before we get into details of the topic, I think I need to do this for my community. Whatever I say today, whatever I speak today, and whatever you also speak for that matter, is more like a discussion than anything like a labeling, or we are not probably going to get things right. We are also learning. I'm still learning till date. You are still learning. So there might be things that I might say, you might say, that could possibly offend someone. And just being very conscious about that, uh, I just want all the viewers to know that whatever we say, if you find it incorrect or you find it misleading or not very informative, please let us know. We are open to feedback, we are open to correction. And so is Trixie, my dog. She's going to keep coming in the background, so I hope that's fine. So
No
yeah,
problem at
about
all. Yeah.
amazing. So about me, Yuti, I am Noel. I About my work. Let me give you a little, very little details about it. I have been working with one of the corporates as a learning and development specialist. Organizational psychology, learning psychology is my main area, and I look into creating potentially interesting interactive learning, and all the challenges that people at workplace struggle with. I have also worked with a group of schools, and with during my tenure in the schools, I worked aggressively with a lot of children and teachers. Children, as we know, have extremely fragile minds. Education plays such a crucial role in their development, in their overall journey. So I have been privileged enough to learn that from children, and now I'm working with corporates, so I get the best of both worlds in terms of learning. About me on a personal front, I am a cisgendered, um, homosexual,
One
gay
second.
man.
What is cisgendered homosexual? I mean, either you are a cisgender or homosexual, right?
No. So let me explain this entire spectrum to you.
Okay.
It's a lot of us have this thought that it's either this or that, right? It's either male or female. And believe me, a lot of my friends till date are very confused. They have been with me. I've been open about my sexuality to them for like 10 years now, but they still do not understand the basic spectrum of sexuality and gender. So let me get straight to it. But before I get to it, my pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm going to explain why I said this too, a little bit in detail in a bit. So, Yuti, today I think I'm privileged enough that I can sit before you and say that I am a homosexual. I am a gay man. Um, Unfortunately, that was never the case. If we look at how sexuality and gender have evolved today, it is great, it is fantastic. But if we date back sexuality as it was in the Greek time, in a lot of mythological references in the Bible, and I'm not going to get very religious here, but in a lot of scriptures, as we have studied, in a lot of literature, homosexuality is prevalent. It was a fact. It was happening. Men would go in bed with other men. Women would go in bed with other women. And in the Greek ancient times, this was a prevalent practice. Even in Christianity, there are a lot of, and I can say this because I am a practicing Christian Catholic. I can very confidently say this, that there are traces of homosexuality being prevalent in that time as well. Um, Unfortunately, because of certain laws, certain norms that the church created, and that were created by some particular leaders of a cult or the church, homosexuality became demonic. People started looking at homosexuality as a crime, as a sin. Uh, Firstly, it began as a sin, and then it was criminalized, and that's where we, somewhere or the other, made homosexuality or any form of sexuality a deviant behavior, a form of deviant behavior. Now, as time went by, homosexuality was prevalent because science today has proven that it is not a disorder. Psychology, psychiatry, the American Association of Psychology, APA, all of that have very strongly spoken about it, that homosexuality and any form of gender identity is not a disorder. It is something probably genetic. It is something probably based in your DNA. The latest research says that there is a gene that was present back in the time of primates. So homosexuality, the gene dates back to that time. So this is not something deviant. Let us understand that. Now, getting back to when homosexuality and gender identities, different gender identities were criminalized, it was a very tough time. Um, there were people who were trying to live up to their gender identity, their gender expression, or their sexuality, but they were forced not to because of the societal norms of man and women being the only structured identities, and sexuality primarily being a woman and a man being attracted to each other.
Right.
It was very linear. It was not even linear, rather it was just two options, two dots on the entire box. That made it very hard for people of different identities to come out and say that, hey, I am gay, or hey, I am a lesbian, or hey, I am not going to conform to male and female. I don't feel like either, right? When people started speaking about it, the main movement took place in 1969, the Stonewall riots, where the police in the US was, trying to close these gay bars. There were these closeted gay bars where men would go, they would try to meet, they would try to, hook up, and probably get into relationships, just be themselves, live up to their identity and sexuality. The cops would try to catch hold of them, they would try to take them away and criminalize these activities. Now, it was high time that this had to change. There was supposed to be a revolution at some point, right? Because people were not being able to be themselves, and uh, being yourselves, freedom, liberty is a basic human right.
Mm.
So, in 1969, group of transgendered women stood up. Now, transgender the term itself might put a lot of people in confusion, and I will explain that in whatever capacity I can.
I
But
have so many questions coming up, Noel, while you are saying all these things, and I will
right,
ask them once we start.
right. Yeah, we will get into each one of it slow by slow. But let's just stick to the historic aspect, just to give people a flavor and understanding of what um, gay men or lesbians or the LGBT community in totality has gone through to get here.
Yeah, right.
So
It's actually
transgender
really
is
important to understand what pain they have gone through, because most of us are very privileged and most of us are not even aware. Though we are aware of
right,
the laws, the new laws, and all the
right,
posts that come up today,
right,
maybe many of us are in support of the community, but we are not
right.
totally aware of what actually happened. And
Right. You said
why?
it perfectly. Like what you said is typically any of my friend who is extremely educated, extremely aware, having the same dilemmas. So here it is not a question of education or being aware. It's just a question of these things have not been spoken about probably in such length, or wherever they have been spoken probably people have not got that attention to understand. So I think now that we are in today's era talking about it, starting a dialogue about it, it's very important to talk about it in detail. So coming back to the historic aspect, um, there were a few transgendered women, and Martha P. Johnson being the pioneer of this entire movement. She stood up and she said, "Enough is enough," and that's where the revolution started. Um, they revolted. It was a way to just stand for who you are. And Stonewall was the place where this happened. It was the bar where this all happened. The cops revolted. Luckily, there was not any loss of life during that revolution, but people kept on fighting. Like a lot of people kept and started picketing, bringing slogans, doing marches, and that's where the whole concept of pride, you all might have heard the pride parade, right? So that's where the concept of pride uh, came to life. And yeah, ever since it's been a revolution, it's been a struggle to be who you want to be. Because tell me something, Yuti. Today, if you want to marry or just love a man, you are not going to be questioned as to why a man, right? um, I have to every time, um, you know, come out of the closet. Even though I have come out of the closet years ago, every time I meet someone new, I have to come out of the closet and say that, hey, I am in a relationship with a boy. I wish to marry a man. Um, so every
I can only
time,
imagine, and I can't even imagine, I should say, how difficult it would be to, start from scratch every time,
every time,
and also
right?
deal with any kind of reaction that the other person gives you.
Exactly, because like even till this date, people obviously automatically assume that, oh, so when are you getting married? Who is the girl in your life? I'm like, no, there's a guy in my life. And they're like, oh, okay, but gay relationships don't really work, and it's like that. So I think this is the stereotypical notions that we are going to break today. So this is more or less about the historic revolution where it started. Um, One very important thing that I would like to highlight over here is when the gay liberation, the gay movements were coming to life and people were really coming together. Unfortunately, during the early 1980s, um, the HIV virus, AIDS, spread across the world, and unfortunately, it was transmitted primarily through gay men initially, because most of the tests that were coming out, most of the samples that were coming out were gay men. And that became a very big phobia, and that became a very strong stereotype around the world, because when AIDS came to being, when HIV came to being, it was not known as HIV, it was known as gay related immune deficiency.
Is
So
it?
it, yes, it was considered a gay disease. And right, starting from there, like a gay disease, obviously science evolved, people understood it's not just a gay disease, it is a virus and anybody can get it, and it is just transmitted sexually. It can happen with straight people, it can happen with homosexuals. But that became a very major turning point in the lives of homosexuals, because people started looking at homosexuals as diseased. People would fear even saying that I am homosexual, because they would directly automatically consider that, oh, he is diseased, this is a curse of God, I cannot touch uh, a gay man. So imagine the struggle, the stereotypes somebody had to go through in the 80s and 90s.
I can
um,
I am just wondering how difficult it must be for people to even accept that they are gay or lesbian just
right,
because of the fear. Because if I want to live and if I want to survive, I can't be myself. I can't
right,
express my sexuality.
right. And in fact, talking about that only, uh, first you have to accept yourself that you are gay, then you have to accept to the world, and then you have to kind of accept the fact that there is a virus out there that is apparently only happening to the homosexuals, and I can get it. So it's like my whole life is a question mark, why am I even living? And that,
Impacted the mental health
yeah,
of the
yeah,
whole community at large, actually.
at large, yes, I totally agree. The mental health of people during that time. See, I don't have any first-hand experience here. I just have experience from all the pop culture, the cinema that I have consumed, the conversations I've had with people on this. Um, but it was tough. It was a very tough time, and eventually, the concept of drag uh, in the late 2010s, took up. And RuPaul's Drag Race is the most famous TV
What
show
is
today.
drag?
I will talk about it. I will talk about what drag is. But popular culture really helped, normalize sexuality and gender. Drag has really revolutionized sexuality and gender. Um, and then there are movies like Freddie Mercury's movie. And there are so many other, Netflix um, shows that are now having prominent gay lead characters. So this helps. This is where we are today. So now, I'm sure I have said so many terms, terminologies that have left you completely confused, right?
I
So
am totally.
don't worry.
I mean, I thought I know certain things about the community, but I think I just know the full form of LGBTQ and nothing else. And that's why you're here, Noel. So please tell us.
Okay.
Start with
So
the how about starting with the names?
yeah, so I'm sure you feel that you know the full form of LGBT2, but I think today when I will show you the full form, or at least most of y'all might actually wonder how true or how relevant this is. So just let me know when my screen share happens. I have put together a small slide
Yeah.
just to give us a little visual aid.
Yes. Your slide is showing up.
Okay, fantastic. So everything is in place, I assume, on the screen.
Yes.
So
Yes.
okay, so now that my screen is visible, I've just put this together to help us with a little bit of visual aid. So as you can see, the entire acronym LGBTQIAA plus. I have left the plus for a reason. Um, L stands for lesbian, where women are attracted to women. Gay stands for men being attracted to men. Bisexual stand for um, a person who is attracted to both or either of both of the genders. And then we have transgender, queer, questioning, um, transgender. Practically, I will talk about it in a lot of detail later. But somebody who is not, um, you know, comfortable with the gender that was assigned to them at the time of their birth, and they choose to express themselves differently from that gender. Queer is an umbrella term. Queer is, you know, there are so many identities today. There are so many different sexualities today, which we will get into. Not every bit of it can be labeled, and therefore, queer is an umbrella term where everyone fits into that term. Something that is non-conforming from the societal concepts, the typical stereotypical societal concepts. Then we have questioning, people who are still unaware of their sexuality, people who are still confused, are still contemplating: am I straight, am I gay, am I heterosexual, homosexual, am I male, female, all of that, right? Intersex is a biological scenario, a biologically driven identity where someone is probably born uh, with hormones or genitalia of male and female. And then we have
Possible?
asexual. Sorry?
Is that even possible? The number of, I mean, is it rare
Yes,
or
that
is
is
it that
possible.
we don't know about it?
That is not only possible, that is actually um, uh, actual thing. Like, I know people who were born intersex and they choose to live their life intersex. So there are certain hormones and there are certain biologically driven um, genitalias that evolve at the time of birth, and someone can be born with both. uh, so they fall into the intersex category, and this is a biological condition. It is very possible, and it's not just possible, it is a reality. As I said, I have known people who are intersex. So yeah. Then we have asexual. Asexual is someone who is not really sexual, um, and yes, that is a thing too.
So,
And then we have
does not
ally.
like sex. I mean, who does not
Yes,
like having sex? Oh, okay.
does not like the concept of sex in their life.
Okay.
And lastly, we have ally. Ally are the supporters of the community, people who support the LGBT folks, who appreciate them, who rally with them, who believe that this is a thing and they need to support us for being who we are today.
So, can I
So
call myself an ally?
100% you can call yourself an ally, because you support the community, you express your love for the community. And I mean, the fact that you are making me do this, and you have given me this opportunity, you are an ally.
You were
So
supposed to
yeah.
do this now. Yes.
Yes, I was, but you gave me the motivation. So yeah, you are an ally, certainly. So now this is broadly what LGBTQI plus means. And I left the plus there for a reason, and I will talk about that too. Now, this is not just it. And to even understand this, there are certain concepts that you need to understand. So let us start with the basic thing: sex.
Okay. But
Sex
before you
is,
start, Noel, I would just like
yeah,
to tell our audience that the next concept that Noel is going to explain answers the question of, I think this is a confusion that we all have. For example,
right,
if a person is gay, is it because they think, is it about the mind, or is it about the biology, or is it about, like, how does person understand that they belong to the queer community? So I think
exactly.
that is what you are going to explain.
Yes, yes, yes. So, so like you said, let me give you an example. When I came out, to some people, and in fact some people being my mom too.
Hmm.
She asked me whether I was um, a hijra, and that is a very serious stereotype that people in today's day and age still have. They
Yes.
don't understand the concept of transgender, the concept of hijra, the concept of um, gay, homosexuality. These are all different pockets. These are all different identities, and they are kind of mixed because of whatever Bollywood showed us, maybe, or whatever we would just assume of people. But let us, before I begin and say anything, let us just say that we need to respect each pocket everywhere. So let's start with the basic identity uh, that we get at birth, right? At birth, uh, the doctor on your certificate will write male or female, right? And this is a prevalent practice that has ideally been happening all around the world. So before we get into that, let us just understand also, there is something that is identity. Identity is how I identify. Biology is at the time of birth. Identity is how I identify. Then we have gender expression in blue, how I choose to express my gender identity, right? And then lastly, we have a concept of attraction. Attraction is who I'm attracted to, whom I want to go to bed with, right? Whom I feel physically or romantically inclined to. So let us first of all segregate this very clearly. Biological sex is at the time of birth. Gender is the identity I feel within me. Gender expression is how I choose to express myself, and the attraction has nothing to do with gender. Attraction is only simply what arouses me or who arouses me. So first we answer the question who I am, and then we answer the question what attracts me. Okay.
So
So
to just make this more clear, can we just go back once? Yeah. So if I take my example, my I identify myself as a woman, and my biological sex is female,
right,
and I like to express myself as a female,
right,
and I'm attracted to women. Sorry, men.
right,
Right?
right.
That's what it is. So
Exactly.
who I'm
Perfect. You got
attracted
that right.
to, what my gender is, how I like to identify myself is all different.
It's all different. That's why it's in different colors, and therefore it's no longer that simple, male and female. It is not just two dots over here. It is a spectrum, and that's why we associate to a rainbow, because a rainbow, when seen on a normal light, daylight, shows you different colors, and those colors put together bring out a beautiful, wonderful human being, right? So that's why we are now going to talk about the spectrum.
Yes.
So let's just focus on biological sex at this point. So biological sex is purely body, where we look at male and female, and doctors are essentially going to write male or female on the certificate. If someone has been born anywhere in between the male and the female point, that person categorizes as intersex. Now, unfortunately, in our country, doctors might not really blatantly, fortunately, unfortunately, they might not blatantly say the child is born intersex, right? And certain things might be visible over the years. Now, um, intersex children born at the time of birth might also be pushed towards being male or being female basis their parents' preferences, right? So the
Right.
doctor leaves that column empty and says that, this is what the situation is. Now, over the years, you all groom them into male or female. The choice is yours. But that only creates more confusion for the child, because the child throughout their life is growing up not knowing who they actually are. And some parents are very supportive. They do tell the child about them being intersex. Some parents don't. Some parents just uh, leave it the way it is, and then the child automatically eventually finds out, right? So again, this is a critical area. Now let's talk about gender identity. Let's talk about how I identify, and this is in the mind. Biological was purely body, physical. Identity is the mind, how I am and what I feel in my mind. So there is a very big possibility that I am born a male, but I might not associate to being a male. I might have this typical, um, you know, um, behaviors, or I would like certain uh, particular type of clothes, qualities that associate more to a female. And it is also okay to have those associative qualities. But in my mind, I don't feel that I am a male. I feel that I am a female. Then that is over here a question of your own identity. You are questioning your own identity as to who I am. And people in that spectrum fall under the gender queer spectrum. Gender queer spectrum is something we will talk in detail, but let us just now stick to male and female. Male typically being he, him, his. That is a pronoun that I, as a gay male, like I said, I am a cisgendered homosexual male, so I prefer the pronouns he, him, his. And this is where pronouns play a very important role, because there might be somebody who might not identify themselves as he, him, his. They might identify themselves neither as she, her, hers. However, they may identify themselves as they, them, theirs.
Yes.
This is the pronoun that is typically used by someone in the genderqueer spectrum. There are more pronouns like Z, Z and all, but I'm not very well versed with that, so might not be able to talk about it. But we can just Google gender queer pronouns, and therefore we should get into the practice of writing our pronouns, because if I can see Yuti has written she, her, hers as her pronoun on her profile, that just automatically makes you feel comfortable. That just
Yeah.
automatically Okay, so that's more or less about gender identity and the mind. Um, there are also concepts like gender fluid and gender neutral. Gender fluidity is where somebody doesn't conform to the typical male and female behaviors, but also doesn't really say that I am either. I can be anywhere in between. I can express or be who I want to be. So that is considered as gender fluid. And gender neutral is where the person doesn't consider themselves to be male or female. They don't relate to the terms of gender. So that falls under the gender neutral spectrum. Now, this is where the whole idea of genderqueer gets a little deeper, because uh, the genderqueer concept is practically moving away from the um, sex that was assigned to someone at the time of their birth, right? So this causes a concept called gender dysphoria. So gender
Okay.
dysphoria is a concept where, say, I was born a male. However, throughout my life, my body is the body of a male, but I do not feel like a male. I feel like a female. And I don't feel that is right, because in my mind, I'm constantly feeling like a woman, and I need to correct that. So I therefore choose to move out of the gender that was assigned to me at the time of birth, and I start transitioning. Now, transitioning is what creates the term transgender, right? I I'm facing a conflict in my mind and my body, which is gender dysphoria, and therefore, a lot of my transgender family, transgender folks, lie on that spectrum. So the moment I move away from cisgender is someone who uh, is okay with the gender assigned to them at birth. So Yuti, like I understand, you have been assigned the gender identity female, and you are okay with that identity. So you are a cisgendered female. I, Noel, am assigned male, and I am okay with that. Therefore, I am cisgendered, and that's why I said cisgendered homosexual, right? However, there are a lot of people who don't associate with being cisgendered because they are not okay with the gender identity that was assigned to them at the time of their birth, and they move away from that. And
So
therefore,
basically, sorry, I'll just say it in a nutshell for people to understand that our gender identity and our biological sex is about me, about who I am as a
in
person,
my mind, who I want to be in my
my
mind.
mind, and sexuality and attraction towards someone else is about what I prefer, who I am attracted to sexually
Right,
or romantically.
right, right.
My sexuality is different from my gender identity.
Very different, very different. It doesn't have any connection over here at this point.
Okay.
Also, we need to keep in mind that transitioning is a choice. Some transgendered people, they opt for sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah.
Some of them do not. So transitioning is a choice. They choose to stay with the organs, the genitalia that was present at the time of birth. Some of them go for corrective measures, and sex reassignment is that particular surgery that
So
people undergo.
when you said transgendered women, so
Yes,
that means a man who transitioned into a woman, right?
exactly. Perfect,
And a
perfect.
transgendered man is someone who was by birth a woman but transitioned into a man.
Right, right.
Okay.
And here, one thing that I would really like to bring out is that, the entire gender dysphoria and the entire transitioning phase is absolutely not easy. It is a very difficult phase. A lot of countries don't even have it as a legal measure in their lawful legal system. Even in India, the laws are not very strong towards transgender people. So it's very important to not force your opinions on them. It's very important to not keep on questioning them. Let them open up to you as and when they feel the time is right.
Right.
So this broadly covers gender identity and biological sex. Now let's talk about gender expression, and this is extremely relevant because here the concept of drag comes in, and I would like to talk a little on that. So gender expression is how I choose to express myself. Uh, do I like to express myself as masculine? Do I like to express myself as feminine? These are typical traits. These are those typical, societal traits that say women are more sensitive, like I said, or men are too supposed to be too strong, right? These are the typical stereotypical traits that the society has. And broadly, science also kind of distinguishes male and female traits. I think it was Carl Jung that spoke about the yin and the yang concept, if I'm not mistaken, or it was similar to the yin and yang concept. Pardon me, it's been a while that I studied psychology, that particular theoretical psychology. So there are certain traits and there are certain you know concepts of what identifies as masculinity and femininity, and I can probably be anywhere. I can be somewhere in the middle. I can be somewhere towards masculine side, feminine side. Like I particularly don't really fall typically in the masculine. I don't express myself typically in a masculine way. I am a little fluid that way. I like certain feminine attributes about myself, and I think that those are my strengths. So that has nothing to do with my sexuality again. This is only the way I express my gender. So there might be a straight cisgendered man, and he might have some feminine qualities, and he chooses to express himself that way. So this is something we have to keep in mind. Then there is a concept of drag. Drag is cross dressing for art, right? It is political because it tries to bring about a statement. Drag was also one of the major reasons why the revolution happened, because men and trans gendered women, they dressed up in drag, they cross dressed to make a statement, to break the typical gender norms. That's why drag is considered a very big deal today, and it's a major pop culture today, a major element of pop culture rather today. Then there are concepts like drag queen, king, and drag queen. Drag king is basically somebody who associates and expresses themselves in a masculine way, and drag queen is somebody who expresses themselves in a feminine way. And again, we cannot understand somebody's sexuality through this. We can.
Yes.
Okay. So it could be a woman, um, dressing up like a man, and that would be considered being a drag queen, a drag king, sorry. And it would be a man dressing up as a woman, and that would be the concept of being a drag queen. So this is broadly gender expression. Now let's talk about sexual orientation. As I said, nothing related to gender. Sexual orientation purely means what arouses me. Who am I attracted to? My gender could be whatever. My gender identity could be whoever. I could express my gender in whatever way possible. Who I go to bed with is not determined by my gender. Who I go to bed with is determined with what attracts me. So I'm sure everybody knows who a homosexual today is, or who a gay man is, a lesbian woman is. And then we have heterosexuals. Heterosexuals are basically people who are attracted to the opposite sex. Homosexuals are people who are attracted to the same sex. But it is not that simple. There is also a concept in sexuality that is sexual in nature, and then there is something that is romantic in nature. Therefore, this is more an equation of an x-axis and y-axis, and not a linear equation. Here we have to take in account that somebody might be attracted to someone but might not be romantically involved with them, or someone would feel romantic towards a certain gender but not be sexual towards them, right? And this is where the entire spectrum of sexual orientation stands. Bisexuality is somebody who is in between, is attracted to men and women both. Then we have concepts like pansexual, people who are uh, sexually aroused by all genders. Then we have uh, pan romantic, somebody who is inclined towards somebody, not because of their gender or just because of the person that they are, right? Then we also have concepts of asexuality and aromanticity, where somebody might overall not just be interested in a romantic or sexual relationship with anyone at all, might not be attracted to anyone at all. So this is what the sexual orientation framework revolves around. There are also concepts like demisexual, somebody who is aroused by intelligence. There are concepts like sapiosexual. There are a lot of concepts that I do not know at this point, or probably we can read up on that. I am still learning too every day. But sexual orientation is not that simple. So now you understand why we need to put something on a spectrum. Um, I think maybe this example that I can show you very quickly would maybe give a little more understanding. So, you know, right now we just look at um, typical social, societal norms of, say, a boy and say a girl. So I'm just going to, you know, use two separate boxes and try to explain that this is what the society looks at when we look at gender, male or female. But the reality today is not that way. There is a lot more. Like, for example, let's just pick up the rainbow colors. This is the typical gradient. This is what my entire colors spectrum is all about. And this is what my sexuality and my identity and expression and biological sex is all about it. If I take all these spectrums, if I take all these linear equations and axes and I put them on one particular rainbow, this is what the typical LGBT community looks like, right? And a person can be at this point and probably have different sexual needs, have different uh, expression, and have a different gender identity. Somebody could be over here and you can see a different number coming out, right? So that means a different gender, a different sexual orientation, and a completely different way of expressing it. So what I mean to say is the permutation and combination of entire rainbow colors, the spectrum is infinite, right? And every person is unique. Similarly, people in the LGBT community are also unique. So I understand all these terms might be overwhelming, might be very new, very different, but I think we need to start a dialogue upon it. We need to, you know, talk about it. So yeah, this is what more or less it's all about.
Noel, that was such a beautiful way of explaining, especially the colors part. And I think it made it so simple to understand. And any person, you, me, or anybody, can be anywhere on the radiant, choose any color from the rainbow, choose to express themselves as any
Right,
gender, and choose a sexual partner or romantic partner of
right,
their choice. And I
their
think
choice.
this is something so personal that I don't think others should have an opinion about it,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. And I think all you can do is as an individual, and I'm not just saying this because I belong to the LGBT community. In fact, I belong to the LGBT community. I should be more conscious about this, that we need to respect their choices. We
Yeah,
need to respect who we want to be, because if somebody is straight, I don't go up to them and, you know, tell them that, hey, you know, why are you straight, or why
yeah,
are you only
exactly.
attracted to them? Because biology and psychology, psychiatry has proved that it is not just, you know, this and that. It is a spectrum of things. So I think we need to normalize this. We need to normalize the concept more and more. And see, the more pride parades happen, the more we talk about these things. You know, people will know our struggle. People will know our freedom. Like, I have come out a million times, even after the first time I ever came out in my life. So every day is a coming out story for me. Imagine you don't have to wake up every day and say that, hey, you know what, I'm a woman. I am
Yeah,
attracted to men. But I have to. I have to.
right, right. So since you are talking about your story, I want to know actually if you can explain or if you would want to. I want to know your story. I want people, whoever is watching a video, to know how it has been a struggle for you since childhood and then school,
Right,
college
right, right,
life, and what made you
right,
come out and why it took you so long to come out. And
right,
so many things. I have so many questions
right,
now. So if you could
right.
just answer a few of them.
Sure. So let us just evaluate this from, you know, social psychology context. And you know, when we are born, at the age of like 2 or 3, we are still identifying our genders. Like, we are still, you know, coming to, uh, you know, acceptance of there is a world around me. I'm trying to understand objects. I'm trying to understand people.
Yeah.
And I always identified as a man, but I always felt a little more inclined towards feminine qualities, right? Um, so before even I could even think about sexuality or something, a lot of people in my family would kind of, say that talks like a girl, walks like a girl,
Hmm.
behaves like a girl, and that kind of, you know, the typical societal North Indian mentality, because I was living in North India at that point. You live in, you start feeling as a child that am I not doing something right? Am I not doing something good? Um, so from a gender context, I was definitely very comfortable with the gender that I was born in, the male gender that I was assigned at birth. However, there were certain feminine qualities in me, and that had nothing to do with my sexuality. That was just my way of expressing it, and I started getting conscious about it, and I started trying to avoid those feminine qualities, which was something that I did, and now that I look back, it's sad. It's sad because not just me, but every other boy growing up is made to do. Like even a guy who is probably straight and cries, you wrote that, right? So this construct, this social construct of how a male should behave and how a female should behave has to be broken down, right? When it comes to sexuality, I was always, see, at a young age, you can't really talk so much about sexuality, but it was always more about the comfort or an embrace of a, a man that I always felt like I used to get attracted, like not, sexually, I would say, but emotionally, I would feel the need to be embraced by a man. And as I explored my sexuality, I thought that this is just a game that two boys play together. Because I lived in a very small town, the concept of being gay and all of that did not really exist. So I started behaving more masculine, but somewhere or the other, my sexuality was driving me towards men, and I was exploring my sexuality with men in the small town. It's when I moved to a city like Bombay, I started coming to terms with the fact that I am gay and it's no longer a game, because it was just sexual at that point. But when I actually fell in, uh, I fell for a man, I realized that, okay, this is not just sexual, I'm romantically and emotionally inclined towards men. And it was largely men. I did experiment, in your teenage, like how you go out on dates, you meet people. I was dating women, but my relationships were never fulfilling or never successful. In fact, I dated women till I was 25, 26, and I've struggled um, to identify my sexuality. Am I gay? Am I bisexual? Am I straight? Um, it was very confusing because I do feel romantically sometimes inclined towards women. I do feel sometimes sexually also inclined towards women. But the more and more I started talking about it, the more and more I started accepting myself, I realized that primarily a man and being in a relationship with a man is something that I would rather prefer between the two. And therefore, I am today very happy in a relationship with a man. Obviously, coming out was tough because, like I said, I gave you an example of my mom asking me whether I'm a hijra. Hijra community, by the way, I have not spoken about this, is a community in India, and it is an empowering community for transgender women. And it is a culture, it is a subculture, I would say, um, in the Indian context specifically, right? Now, people unfortunately look down on the concept of hijra because they feel like they don't earn, or they are borrowing money, asking for money. But that is not the case. it is actually an empowering society that has been put together because a lot of children were abandoned because of their sexuality. A lot of children who were probably born intersex were abandoned with no means to do anything for the living. So it is actually a community for people to find belongingness.
But I
And
think people
yeah,
don't, people are not aware. So
yes, people are not aware.
you must be aware. All of us have gone through this. When a boy, behaves a little feminine, they give them labels as hijra or gay. Gay hai
Okay,
kya?
yes,
So of course, I think it is high time that we sensitize ourselves and stop
right,
using
right,
these labels, because it's offending. It's not right. And I don't
right,
I mean, these terms are not to be used as a way of making fun or humiliation.
right. So I think just building to what you said and coming back a little to my personal
Your story,
experience.
yes, please.
In school, I was bullied a lot. I was bullied a lot. I was called gay on main stage. Like every time I would climb up on the stage, I had people not saying my name but saying gay. And the sad part of it is that there were people, in my school, or there were people who were also of the similar sexuality, right? But they themselves would bully me, right?
Hmm.
So it's a vicious cycle, and it's school is not easy, especially when you're still identifying your sexuality. Um, as I grew older, I mean, coming to Bombay really helped. It was accepting, but it was never easy because there is a large amount of discrimination, that happens. A lot of people are still not open to this and find it uncomfortable. Even at my workplace, I could never open up about my sexuality until recently. Like the current job that I do, my team members know about me. Then there are also some team members who don't, and I just think that it's not none of their business, or it's not relevant to them. But even till this day, I have to think twice before talking about my sexuality, because there are a lot of things a gay man would probably miss out just because of his sexual orientation. Throughout my journey in Christ University, when I was doing my master's, I never revealed my sexuality blatantly to people because I was afraid that I might not get certain opportunities. And I was scared. And even till this day, I do get scared. I'm, not going to lie and say, it's all rainbow and unicorns out there. It is not. There are people, who are extremely hateful towards the community. There are a lot of people, um, and people in the governance bureaucratic system, um, not very sensitive towards these topics. Um, a lot of people are killed. A lot of people are killed because of the sexuality and sexual orientation. I mean, trans lives are taken away just because they are transitioning, because they're trans. So it's a very sad scenario, and you would be surprised to know that all this also happens in the US, where being gay is legal, being homosexual is legal, being in gay marriages is legal. Unfortunately, today in India, I have a very happy relationship with my partner, with my boyfriend. My family is okay with it, his family is okay with it. But till this day, we still can't get married. And a lot of people ask me, hey, you have like this perfect relationship. When are you getting married? And I tell them I can't. And then they scratch their head and tell me, what? Why can't you get married? Section 377 is abolished. But then I, would get into sitting down and telling them that, hey, Section 377 was about legalizing me as a gay man. Before Section 377 wasn't abolished, I was illegal. I was not a legal entity in this country. And after the Supreme Court judgment of 2018, I am now just legal, and I can legally say it out there that, hey, I'm gay. But that doesn't mean that I can marry. because marriage in the legislature, in the legal system, is unfortunately still categorized as between a male and a female. And this is the struggle that a lot of gay men, the LGBT community at large faces, because they cannot openly love people who they want to. Tomorrow, if my uh, society, my community, my family has disowned me for my choices, right? The only solace I find is in my partner. And God forbid tomorrow, if I am on my deathbed, I have nobody, just my partner. My partner cannot take those choices for me, whether to pull the plug or not, whether to whether I can use his insurance policies or not, whether I can leave him money behind or not, whether I can have a will for him or not. And that's what marriage does. It gives you that social security. Unfortunately, I cannot have that social security with my boyfriend, and a lot more homosexuals or people who are probably of a different sexuality
I
can't.
think marriage is still, I think, a far-fetched dream. Even as a couple, if you want to rent a place and
Right,
if you reveal that you are gay, you would probably not be allowed.
right. Like in my past apartment that I used to live, they thought that we are cousins. In
Uh,
this apartment, they think that we are friends. I mean, even if they like, I've never really gone out there and blatantly said it out, because I'll be honest, I am scared. I have certain responsibilities of my granny, of my
of
our
course.
dog daughter. Um, I I think that I am going to be open about my sexuality if somebody asks me, but if somebody doesn't ask me, why should I? If I'm getting
Yeah,
like an
definitely.
apartment, and the society unfortunately is like that, I think
So,
it's not worth it to say it out loud there. So
and
yeah,
especially when you have gone through so much, it makes you think twice whether you should or
yeah,
should not. So,
yeah.
Noel, thank you so much for sharing such precious and such private journey with all of us here. And thank you for sharing all that information. I think this was very much needed. I'm sure we a lot of us are still confused, but I think this is a process and we need to keep talking about it and have a conversation about it with whoever
Right,
you want to, as much as you want to, so that you can support people. And if you are someone who wants to change the world, and you know, there are so many youngsters these days. Even I have students who are, fortunately, who can identify themselves as gay or lesbians or bisexuals in their adolescence, and that's, I would consider it as a fortunate thing, and they're able to share it with their parents as well. So
right,
if you are someone who would like to bring about a change, then please talk about this. Talk to people who are in this community. They are not evil, or they are not bad, and there is nothing wrong with them. I think we need to find out what is wrong with us to that we are not able to open up to such a beautiful concept about gender and sexuality. So thanks a lot, Noel, for all of that information, and you put so much efforts to make us understand about the LGBT community and made a presentation. Thanks a lot for joining me at Sunday
thank you for
Stories.
having me, Yuti. I always look forward to all the content that you put out. Always a fan.
Thank you. If anybody has any questions, please leave your comments or DM me or Noel. I will be tagging him, of course. He'll be able to better answer your questions if you have. And once again, apologies if we have offended anybody on this episode. So, thank you all for watching today's episode.
Thank you.